Alrighty, this is my Magicka Sorcerer PvP build for the Dragon Bones patch. I decided to switch my Sorcerer from the last patch. It was all PvE and now I switched it back to PvP, and I've sort of changed things around now. And I was looking back at my previous build and it was pretty fucking shitty, but it was good for what I was trying to do with it then, and it was just a simple build. But I changed a lot, new gear sets and everything, and that's why I'm bringing the Magicka Sorcerer back. I've been playing with it a lot more. Battlegrounds. The Battleground setup and no CP setup is a little bit different than with CP. With CP I sort of have a little bit of a different tweak, and then it's okay. But I'll just get into the gear sets now. So we're running 5-1-1. We're trying to run 5-1-1. But right now I'm running 5 light, 2 heavy, but when I have CP I like to run 5-1-1. So right now we have Shackle Breaker, we have 2 heavies, we have 1 Magicka recovery. This needs to be changed actually to Magicka enchant, but what I usually run in Cyrodiil when I have CP is 5-1-1. So this is the medium. So we'd have one heavy head of Shackle Breaker, and then have everything's magic enchant, just so you know. And then we have 1 piece medium of Kina for the extra spell damage. Everything Magicka and everything is in pen. The other set that we're running is Amberplasm. So we're running 2 5-piece sets that are always active, and 1 monster helm. So Amberplasm, also all in pen. We have jewelry enchants. So the jewelry enchants, there's 2 spell damage and then 1 Magicka recovery. I found that's the best combo to have. We burn through a lot of Magicka as a mag sorc, so I like to have even more recovery than I do on my mag blade. My mag blade can survive fine at around 2k. This one I feel like you have to be a bit higher to survive with how much Magicka you're using. So that's the gear, and then the staves that we're using is 1 Inferno and 1 healing. So I chose Inferno over Shock, even though mag sorcs do have that shock damage. I chose Inferno because of our bar setup, and I'll get into that shortly, but we're running an infused shock damage enchant on there. And the back bar is just a defending weapon damage, spell damage enchant on there. So, very easy to obtain setup. Actually, that's not true, because Amberplasm comes from Runes of Mazatoon, and Runes of Mazatoon, you have to clear the thing, so if you don't have a group to do it, and pugging it is pretty hard to do, it'd be difficult to get the jewelry to do this, because I believe the jewelry only drops from like chests or from the last boss. I don't know if there's any unique pieces that drop from like a single boss or anything, so it'd be pretty difficult to get this then if you don't have a good group. But Shackle Breaker, very easy to craft, and then this just comes from Undaunted chests, the middle chest for DLC. Okay, next we'll go into the skill bars. So this ult is interchangeable, I'll explain that, but on the first ability slot we just have Matriarch, and obviously this needs to be double slotted. This is just our burst heal. Next, Force Pulse. This is what I use as sort of a spammable. I just spam this a lot more than any other attack because it does great damage. Next, and I like to actually weave this in with light and heavy attacks. So if I do a heavy attack and then I hit a Force Pulse right after, and just get it. So if I'm opening an attack, it would go like something like that to sort of just open up the damage on on an enemy. And then obviously like you throw Haunting Curse in there as well. So Haunting Curse is that dot damage. I used to have Daedric Prey here. I used to have Crushing Shock. So that's why I had to just completely morph everything back into PvP setup. So Haunting Curse does a lot more damage than Daedric Prey, because it doesn't rely on pet damage to do a significant amount of damage, and we don't really have a good pet. We just have a small pet here, and we don't run the Storm Atronach, so it's not going to be useful. So we have Haunting Curse here. Next we have Flame Reach. Flame Reach is for that controlled stun. So before I would run Crystal Frags and Force Pulse. That's what I think would be a better combo, but because Crystal Frags no longer has that stun, we have to switch that ability, and then I can control when I want to have the stun. So this is sort of the same thing I did with my previous build. I used to have Shock Reach here. You need the Reach morph because the distance is just too great to lose, because having the Reach makes a big difference. It doesn't, especially with like this passive, it goes much further. It's a lot better. So Shock Flame Reach for the controlled stun, and then Mage's Wrath just for the damage. I took this over Endless Fury because I feel Endless Fury have to be like in a Zerg fight for it to be helpful. And if you're in a Zerg fight, you don't need to be spamming other abilities anyway to get the Magicka back, or to be defensive or anything when you're in a Zerg, because you have people healing you. So you can just run Mage's Wrath here instead. It's sort of like Reverse Slice from the two-hander skill line, where it does damage to enemies nearby as well. So this is very useful to have. And the ult. So this is really up to you. So I chose Eye of the Flame because I was just running in a small group yesterday, or this could be even used in Battlegrounds, but what I usually run with is Dawnbreaker Smiting. This is just, it's a cheap ult, 107 ult only, and you can just use it to stun enemies while also doing great damage. Sorcs also have built-in physical damage. I think it's... Nope, is it Storm Calling? Yeah, there we go. So, an extra 5% physical damage just for being a sorc anyway. So, you can use this and still be viable. It's also, I took Smiting because of the stun. You don't need weapon damage, so you shouldn't take Flawless as a Mag Sorc. And Smiting, I feel, is much better for PvP anyway. Now we'll go to the back bar. This is the Resto bar. The Resto bar is Matriarch again. And then we have Streak. Streak is, you can use offensively and defensively. You can streak through enemies, or you could also just streak to get out of situations, or you could use streak to change your positioning to be in a more advantageous position. So this is where you can line of sight people easier, and instead of using Mist Form, you could use this, because you also get that extra bit of spell damage for having streak slotted instead. Next we have Healing Ward. So Healing Ward is what I use in small groups. Sometimes I'll switch this out for depending on what I'm doing. If I'm doing a lot of keep sieging and pushing, I have Daedric Mines or Shattering Prison. I haven't really used Daedric Mines. I tried it for like one battleground round, like just one death, didn't like it, and switched back to Shattering Prison. But Healing Ward is what I have here right now. This is really up to you. I even had Crystal Frags here, because when you're on the defensive bar, you're like spamming your heals and everything, and when you're spamming abilities, Crystal Frags will proc, and then you can actually hit people with Crystal Frags. And the next one, Hardened Ward. So this is where I was really wrong on my last video. Empowered Ward is just much shittier. I thought the shield would not be big enough to make up for it, but man, this shield is crazy good. It leaves a lot of room for error, so if you fuck up, you can still have enough shield so you're okay to live. So Hardened Ward much better, in my opinion, because I thought Empowered Ward's like you get a little bit reduced shield, but you get that Magicka recovery, so you can spam it more and stuff like that, or you just get Magicka recovery in general, so I thought that was great. But Hardened Ward is the one to take. And then Boundless Storm for major resistances, but also does that little dot to nearby enemies and gives you speed. Lastly is Absorption Field. So depending on who you're running with, if you're just running solo, I would rather take the Resto ult, but I don't have it unlocked yet. So I'd have Resto ult here instead, and then I'd morph that Resto ult into the one that gives major force. Again, so you can use it offensively and defensively, which is key. So you can use it defensively just to heal you if you're really low. You can use it offensively to grant you major force so you do extra damage. But right now we're running Absorption Field, because when I was in that group, defensively I'd be running this, and offensively I had that Destro ult there, so depending on what we needed, I'd run either of these abilities. So this can be used offensively and defensively too. You can use it defensively, because I took the healing version, to just stay in and heal your group, while also silencing enemies, but you can also use it offensively to silence your enemies at a distance, and then your group can push in and sort of use their offensive ults while you're using your defensive ult. So that's the bar setup and the gear, and I'll just quickly go through the Apprentice Stone. So right now we're using the Apprentice, sorry, that meant the Mundus Stone. We're using the Apprentice. This is for Cyrodiil with champion points, but if you're in Cyrodiil without champion points or in Battlegrounds, I'd switch this out for the Atronach. So you could have Atronach here, and then you could also run this there, because you go through a lot of Magicka, so you could have that extra little bit of Magicka to help you sustain. So I'd have more Magicka recovery, and then I would also keep Witch Mothers. You could run Clockwork Citrus Fillet here instead. It's much better, but if you don't have the money to keep buying Perfect Row, or you don't fish a lot, you don't need to run it. Witch Mother's Brew is a fine replacement. It's essentially the same thing. And that's it. That's it for that. And I'll just go through the champion points very quickly. So I keep changing this around every time I look at it, but we have 16%, so 40 Warlord, 75, 75. I have 75 because I heavy attack a lot in PvP, so to get resources back. And then we have 75 magic recovery for 14% each. I had extra points, so I just put 2% into sneak, 20 into block. I block a lot, so I put 20 in there. 9% reduction only though. And then we have 12% or 28 into tumbling. 51 Elfborn, 64 Elemental, 37 Spell Erosion. I know that's looks kind of high. 56 Master at Arms. So this will help like basically all of our attacks, all except this one. So we're doing is like Force Pulse. It'll get buffed. Flame Reach, Endless Fury, Dawnbreaker. I think Streak even counts as it as well. But the other thing that doesn't get buffed is Haunting Curse, so we just have 10% extra, so just 23 into Thaumaturge. Oh yeah, and there was 9 in Staff Expert. Like I said, I light attack, weave, and heavy attack a lot, and that's why I have that Berserker enchant on the back, because I am light attacking with this. Like when I hit my fields, I proc it like that. So and then I get my... So that's how I keep up my, like, get higher spell damage compared to using pots and stuff like that, which is why I have that little bit of extra into Staff Expert, 6%. That could be changed if you want into other positions. So if you were to take 9 out of here, you could divvy it up into different sections here. Maybe have 66. No, you couldn't have it. Yeah, I'd put some into Spell Pen and then like maybe 1% more into one of these. That's all. And then lastly, we'll just go to the pots. So the pots that I use are Essence of Immovability. There's 2 different pots you could use for this. You could use the one that I'm using, which gives you health, Magicka, and immovability. I use this not only for Magicka resources, but if I'm also low on health, then I like to use it as well, so then it'll give me that boost in health that I need, which is why I run this over the Magicka spell crit and movability pot, because I feel like I don't need to have the Major Prophecy. I would just rather have this as a heal or Magicka return, which is a great potion to run. And then a move ability is very useful, especially as a mag too, because you're getting stuns thrown at you all the time. Okay, so that's the video. I hope you like it, and I hope it helps you in PvP. So, thanks for watching.